A wedding is meant to be one of the most cherished and celebrated moments in life. A gathering of loved ones, a symbol of commitment, a day that marks the beginning of a new journey. I had always imagined my wedding day would be filled with warmth, laughter, and the presence of my family standing proudly by my side. But my parents had other plans. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. I had been hesitant to tell them about the wedding, unsure of how they would react. Our relationship had always been strained, filled with moments where they dismissed my accomplishments and overlooked my happiness. But still, I hoped that this time would be different. I hoped that despite our differences, they would at least show up for me. Instead, their response came in the form of an emotionless, dismissive statement. "We won't be attending." "We don't see the point. It's not worth celebrating." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Not worth celebrating? At first, I thought I had misread it, that maybe there was an unspoken reason, a hidden meaning that softened the blow. But there wasn't. It was exactly as cruel and detached as it seemed. They weren't coming. Not because they were sick, not because they physically couldn't, simply because they didn't care. I sat in silence, gripping my phone, reading the words over and over again as my mind struggled to comprehend them. This wasn't just about missing an event. This was an active choice, a deliberate decision to dismiss one of the most important days of my life. For years, I had felt like an afterthought in my family. My accomplishments had always been treated as lesser, my milestones brushed aside in favor of those they deemed more important, and now, faced with the most meaningful day of my life, they had confirmed what I had always feared. I wasn't a priority. I wasn't worth celebrating. A dull ache settled in my chest, followed swiftly by a searing wave of anger. I had spent my entire life trying to prove to them that I was worthy of their love, their pride, their support. I had tried to win their approval, hoping that if I worked hard enough, if I achieved enough, if I became enough, they would finally see me. But now I realized something. I would never be enough for them, and that was their failure, not mine. If they didn't want to celebrate my wedding, I wasn't going to beg them. I wasn't going to cry or plead or try to change their minds. Instead, I was going to make damn sure they never forgot what they had missed. From that moment on, everything about my wedding changed. It was no longer just about the vows, the decorations, or the guest list. It became something bigger, a statement, a declaration, a moment that would live on long after the day had passed. I poured every ounce of love and energy into making it unforgettable. I booked the most breathtaking venue, a garden lined with golden lights, cascading flowers, and a view that stretched out into the horizon like something pulled from a dream. Every detail was carefully chosen, every moment crafted to be magical. I wanted everyone to remember this day, not just my fiancé and me, but everyone who attended. Because if my parents weren't going to acknowledge my wedding, if they were going to pretend it wasn't worth their time, then I was going to prove them wrong. The RSVPs came pouring in, friends, extended family, mentors, coworkers. People wanted to be there. People wanted to celebrate our love. And as the wedding day approached, I knew one thing for certain. Their absence wouldn't ruin my joy, and it definitely wouldn't erase the lesson they were about to learn. Because when the wedding day arrived, they were about to see exactly what they missed. The wedding day arrived in a whirlwind of excitement, a symphony of laughter and joy filling the air as guests arrived dressed in elegant attire. The venue was exactly as I had envisioned, golden lights casting a soft glow over the carefully arranged floral displays, the gentle rustling of leaves adding an ethereal touch to the atmosphere. As I stood at the altar, staring into the eyes of the person I was about to marry, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness and gratitude. The absence of my parents, though painful, did not diminish the magic of the moment. Instead, it solidified something deep within me. This day was not about them. It was about love, commitment, and the people who had shown up for me, who had chosen to stand by my side in ways my parents never had. Throughout the ceremony, I was surrounded by genuine warmth. The vows exchanged were heartfelt, filled with promises that felt as immovable as the stars. The cheers that erupted as we kissed were deafening, a chorus of celebration that drowned out any lingering bitterness that had tried to take root. I had spent years believing that validation had to come from my parents, that their presence would somehow define the importance of my day. But as I danced under the string lights, arms wrapped around my new spouse, surrounded by people who truly cared for me, I realized the truth. I was already whole. Their absence had no power over me anymore. Still, I had made sure they would witness exactly what they had discarded. The professional photographer and videographer had captured every radiant moment, ensuring that every joyful laugh, every tear of happiness, and every dance would be immortalized. I had personally selected the most powerful moments, the embrace of my childhood best friend as she wiped away happy tears, the way my spouse looked at me with unshakable devotion, the collective joy that filled the air like electricity. I wanted my parents to see it all, to understand the enormity of what they had turned their backs on. A few days after the wedding, I sent them a package wrapped in soft gold ribbon. Inside was a carefully compiled album of photographs, each image a testament to the beauty of the day. Alongside it, a USB drive containing the wedding video, capturing every heartfelt speech, every dance, every moment they had refused to be part of. The final piece was a letter, short, honest, and impossible to ignore. I told them exactly what their absence had meant, how their decision had hurt, how I had once thought my happiness depended on their presence. And then, with unwavering certainty, I wrote the words they needed to read. This was the happiest day of my life, and you weren't there, not because you couldn't be, but because you chose not to be. I hope you see now what you missed. I hope it was worth it. Days passed without a response, and I wondered if they would simply ignore it, bury their guilt beneath excuses and indifference. Then, late one evening, my phone buzzed. My mother's name appeared on the screen, her message short but laden with regret. "We watched the video. We saw everything." The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument we had ever had. Then came another message, from my father this time. "We made a mistake. We should have been there. I don't know what we were thinking." For the first time in my life, I felt the weight of their regret. They had finally seen, finally understood, and finally admitted that they had been wrong. But as I stared at the screen, reading their words, I realized something. I didn't need their validation anymore. My wedding had been perfect without them. My joy had flourished in their absence. They were the ones who had lost something that day, not me. From that moment forward, they made an effort to repair the damage they had done. They reached out more, attended family gatherings they had previously ignored, tried to make up for the years they had spent dismissing my happiness. I allowed them back in slowly, cautiously, but never blindly. Their absence had taught me an invaluable lesson. Love, real love, is about showing up. And on the most important day of my life, they had failed. They had chosen to stay away, believing my happiness wasn't worth their time. But now, they would live with the weight of what they had missed, knowing that they had chosen to walk away from something truly extraordinary. My wedding had been a defining moment, not because of their absence, but because of the people who had been there. And while I had let go of the pain they had caused, I knew one thing for certain. They would never forget what they had missed. Not for a single day. Not for the rest of their lives. And that, in itself, was enough.